The Menscape
The
podcast.
Menscape podcast with Carl.J. Ashley.
So, hello and good evening to the March Menscape podcast, sponsored by The Right Coach. And this month's guest is Maher from the Urban Co-op. How are you doing, Anne?
I'm very good.
Thanks
Carl,
for
I'm very
joining us.
good. Nice and calm after all the trying to organise
We got there
ourselves.
eventually.
Yes.
So, without much ado, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I am Anne Maher, and I live here in Tipperary, not too far from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Live in the Glen of Aherlow, and I'm originally from Laois, from Port Laois. What I do is I'm the managing director of the Urban Co-op in Limerick now, and I suppose it's a culmination of every job I ever did in one place. And so yeah, that's where I am for the last few years, since possibly I've been involved in this project for about 8 or 9 years now.
Wow. Okay.
And as a social enterprise, it's going about 10 years, but it's been it has gone through a lot of different stages, and it's a huge learning for me, but quite an exciting journey as I don't know, part of life, what the Urban Co-op is actually was it's in Limerick City, just outside Limerick, in just beside the NCT in East Way Business Park.
Ballysimon?
In Ballysimon, yeah, Ballysimon Road. And what it is a community grocery and wellness hub. And it's going, as I say, about 10 years, but it started off just as the grocery and by a group of people who were trying to set up an urban cooperative in response to the fact that Dell had left the city as a major employer.
Right.
And because the city was, I suppose, bereft of employment, directly and indirectly, there was a thinking that, to start from the ground up again, and the idea of food and, a buying club came to the fore, and the idea of creating something where it could possibly employ people. And again, as a cooperative idea where people came together to do so, it was timely, I guess, but it was also, people were quite enthusiastic about it at the time in 2013 when it was set up. Now, I heard about the concept of it. At the time, I was very involved in doing nutrition classes up in Tipperary. I was also interested in sourcing raw milk at the time, because I was on my own journey trying to solve problems for myself in my own family, where our son Shane was born in 2005, and with Down syndrome, he was having quite a few digestive problems. Now, my background would be as a home economics teacher and public health nutritionist. So I had been working in adult education and doing nutrition classes at the time. And in my own research on, say, special needs, etc., I came across the concept of gut health which everyone is talking about now, but at the time in 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007 was quite new. And I was exploring different ideas of, trying different things with Shane at the time for his gut. And so it led me on a journey really to going back to finding raw milk, which seems a bit daft really, because we live in the Golden Vale and there's plenty of cows.
Yep, dairy farmers abound.
And I'm also a farmer's daughter.
Yeah.
Sometimes the answer can be right in front of you and you don't see it. And effectively, I found that raw milk really helped him to thrive. It was that simple. In my own.
Sorry, dare I ask why? Is that like to do with bacteria? Like, isn't cow's milk just for cows' babies, or is there some pretty solid kind of research there from a bacteriological perspective? Is it? I'm letting you go into that a bit if you want there.
Well, I can go into it in quite a lot of detail, but at the same time,
what are the benefits of raw milk?
Well, the benefits of it is it's in a digestible form that, because it's not processed. Yes, our body can get more of the benefits of it than the pasteurized version.
Right.
Would be quite a simple version of it. But I also, looking at it, it's complete food. And when you're a parent trying to feed children, often children are fussy and they're difficult to feed. And, as a parent, you're stressing, trying to achieve nourishment. So I would have had a situation where my child wasn't thriving. So you're trying to catch up all the time.
Right.
And you're stressed as a parent. So I was finding that raw milk was one of those foods that you could see the benefit of it, that I wasn't stressing because the food was actually working. And now I'm making it quite simple, but in hindsight, like there was a lot of reading that I would have done.
Yeah.
Also contacting different people and trying to source good milk. Like, I would have gone to various farmers in the locality, and I would have been a bit skeptical about the fact that they would have been using plenty of Roundup on the land, and as all those chemicals coming through in the milk, and it made me look for an organic farmer. But to find an organic farmer, there were few and far between. But ultimately, it led me to Sean Condon, who was in Crocora in Limerick.
Okay.
And between trying to find out where his farm was and then arrange with him to get the milk from him, but also to, as I was finding it, a lot more people around me were interested in getting milk as well. So I became a bit of a bootlegger.
Word of mouth is king.
Yeah, and so I was driving around with quite a lot of milk in the back of my car. And that was great until the milk broke or the bottles broke or whatever. So it came to a point where when I came across the urban co-op at the time, what you're hearing there in the background is my husband doing the curtains, making the noise there.
Don't worry about the background noises. I'm sure you could have heard Buddy eating his food or drinking his drink there. Buddy sometimes comes over during the podcast to say hello, slap around a bit. I reckon if you sort of then that opens you up to that. Are there other than organic foods that Shane responded positively to, or was it just raw milk that you found was the?
I found raw milk was just, not that it was the only food, but the idea that it was the food that had the most dramatic effect. And
so likely there would be other people interested, right?
Oh, absolutely, and really, I'm giving you a condensed version of the story. There were a lot of other factors that would have happened as well, but ultimately, in terms of the urban co-op, it became a place that I convinced the farmer to meet me there. And that then he got that food into the shop, into that space as well, that other customers could get that food as well.
Were you in the same location back then? Are you where you are today?
It was on Mulgrave Street in Limerick at the time. It was an old Esso garage.
Right.
So it was only open maybe 1 or 2 days a week. And religiously, I would go there every week to get my food and meet Sean with the milk. And so it grew from there, really. But the point with it was the trying to get all the good food. You know, you would go to the supermarket, but you'd find there was lots of products, but there wasn't good food. You know, you couldn't at the time get sourdough bread really in the supermarkets. You couldn't get organic meat. You know, you couldn't really get organic chicken. It was hard to get. It was so between that and trying to connect with other farmers, a place like the Urban Co-op, where they're starting to bring organic food together and make it easier for you to get, was a bit of godsend for me. And I was very interested in the development of this, and I used to chat to them about it. They had got a grant to do up the building. So it went from, say, 1 hour a week buying club to maybe it was opening up to a 6-day business. But ultimately I was getting more involved with it. So I ended up joining the board at the time. But just at that time that they ran out of money, effectively, and the decision was taken to close it because there wasn't enough. The grant money was running out before they were becoming financially viable. And for me personally, I was thinking, this can't happen. This can't happen. It's, you know, it's one of those things where you go, gosh, there was so much that had been built up, but also
true. How much money do you need to meet a fella and get some milk off him?
Well, I remember thinking I didn't like the idea of having to go back and start chasing around the country again to get my food again. That thought certainly crossed my mind. I had made contacts, you know, we had made relationships with different people at the grocery at this stage. And at this stage, the concept was about 3 years old. And, you know, there was the internal strife, and there was the row, and there was the split, and all of the things that happen in when a group come together. So in a way, I was still just dipping my toe in the water at the early stages of it. But ultimately, I convinced 1 or 2 of the people who were doing it to, can we start again? Can we, you know, start again, try and make this work? There were a few things that encouraged us to start again, and one of them was that there was, say, 10% of a grant that wasn't called down, and there was a promise of money that was to come from JP McManus at the time. And I remember there was still stock there, and so, you know, between it all, it was like we thought, well, look, there are some resources there that we could get this started again.
For anyone that's not familiar with him, JP McManus is a Limerick-based racehorse owner that donates money to charitable organisations and what have you. Is that fair to say? That's
fair to say. No, he would be a well-known philanthropist in Limerick, and
the Daughters of Charity, I'd heard he gets behind. Yeah,
but a lot of Limerick organisations have got money from him, and he would have been a go-to, you know, with any initiative starting off. And
so most Limerick people would have heard of him anyway for his Limerick hurling, but we might have viewers outside of Limerick that would be wondering. Yeah, no.
In terms of what we saw at the time, as well, I definitely saw that there was potential to start again based on the funding that was effectively there. And Bill, the previous chairperson who was bowing out at that stage, he connected us with Tate House, which became our second premises. And so we did start again. And again, in hindsight, it was the right thing to do. It was a brave move because we were moving into doing the same initiative, but now you were in an area of the city where organic food was not typical. So we were in South Hill, and it was a poorer area of the city. But it was 2 years there building it up, and we ended up getting a slot on television on Nationwide, which is a well-known, family viewing program. And suddenly people started to take an interest in us, and we grew so much in a short space of time. We ended up having to move to where we are now, which is quite a big premises. But it's evolved over time to being not just a grocery now, but because we have room space that we rent out for therapies and therapists to do their own therapies, it adds another dimension to the grocery. So it has become this lovely community space, which is operating over 7 days now. And so it's just got bigger and bigger and deeper in the years that I've been involved. And, going through the pandemic and going through, society changing in these few years, it's been quite an interesting journey. But I have to say, it's been quite challenging in many ways too, but also it's quite encouraging for other communities to see what we have managed to do. And there's a lot of interest in us around the world now, actually. So
happy days.
Well, happy day. It is happy days in the sense that
it is. It's a success story, and it's good to hear.
It's starting to become a success story. As you say, it
took you years
to become an overnight success. Yeah. No, it is. It's. I can sit here and reflect nicely about it, but there's a lot of. It's been hard work. It's been hard work. There's no question.
So on the wellness side, I'd have met Geraldine and yourself through my partner Dee being a sound healer and doing sound bath journeys in your premises. You've also got, is it Tracy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's about 40 therapists on the books. Wow. And individuals, they may not come in every week, but there's been a lot of dynamic people have come through. So you have counselors, you have people doing yoga, Pilates. Again, as you say, the sound healing is very popular. It's lovely. It's really nice. And I think what we've found is this idea that, all these therapies are not alternative. What we're doing is making them normal.
Right. The way food has been packaged and boxed and presented as normal, and then anything that's organic is presented as alternative, sounds a bit like medicine, in the sense that the old ways of doing medicine are now regarded as quackery and alternative, and sort of big pharma's regarded as traditional medicine, which of course they do use plants and derivative of plants and other things, but it's amazing that the perception of that. Did you envision having a sort of a wellness hub, or did you kind of fall into that after having the sort of the market concept and the grocery concept of being able to facilitate like-minded people looking for decent food and nutritious food?
Well, the idea of the wellness did come from the customers, and it also came from one of the employees, Brian, who worked as a business manager there for a while. The idea of seeing how wellness hubs are, putting a structure on the wellness around the grocery. You know, when your customers come in and they're chatting, they would have often said to us, wouldn't it be great if, you know, we had the chance to do a wellness class or that. And when we were in Tate House, we did do some classes there. We did some events. And we kind of got a taster of what we could do. So when we came to Eastway, one of the reasons we chose that building was because of the space, the big Plunkett room space that we have. And it sold the building to us in the sense that we said, well, there's a space now we could definitely do wellness events. And I know we were in the building about 2 or 3 months, and we started doing wellness weekends, and they were a hit. And it was also a case of us saying to ourselves, you know, this is possible. This is what we would love ourselves. And from that, building it. But a lot of it was to generate income as well through the room space. And but it was very much guided by the type of things we want ourselves. And you know, you're chatting always to the customers, and they're telling you what
if
they
you're
want.
prepared to listen.
Yeah.
So the ethos was about organic food and listening to your customers and wellness and well-being.
Yeah.
And that is very attractive to people. People talk, people recommend you, and all of a sudden people are coming along and you're getting busier and busier, and then there's supply chain and demand and things change. You probably seen a lot of products come and go, and you get to sort of observe what sells, what doesn't sell, and the margins. It's all right buying and selling, but you need to make enough money to pay your staff as well, or what have you, you know?
Yeah, it's well, it's constantly a challenge, Carl. See the over the years as well, one of the things that we would have said is that we do need to employ people. It can't just be on a volunteering basis. And while we do have volunteers who are very much part of the ethos as well, it has to wash its face. And you know, I have to admit that even from the margins, like if I look back and when the grocery was started, it was very hard to, they didn't actually start putting good margins on the products. The idea, the tagline was wholesome, affordable food at the time. And you're competing with the big supermarkets, which have, you know, cheap food, basically. Or so what we were trying to do is say, right, if we buy or pay a good price for the food directly from the farmer, and encourage the customer to value that food. But if in order for us to be viable, obviously the margin has to be enough to make that work. Now, when it started off 10 years ago, basically the margin was around 20%, you know, and I cannot tell you how long it took me to learn the basic economic fact that you need at least 30% to start being viable. And, you know, it has taken us a few years to get up to that point. Now, the wellness does help us to bridge the gap and keep, you know, in some cases we might have a margin maybe of 20-25% on certain products, certain local products. But it's really important that you get your margins right. And I think that's always a work in progress. But it's really important, and we've learned this through experience as well, that your constantly giving a message that customers have to value the food we have. And like the journey I would have had with the raw milk, it took me a long time to convince the farmer that his food was extremely valuable because it was helping to heal my child. Now, we would see a lot of customers now who are on a healing journey with food themselves. And they come to the realization after many years that the medical model has not served them, or maybe they have just got worse from the medication, for example, or maybe it isn't the answer that they thought it would be. And they come back towards food, usually as a last resort. And then they're quite amazed that good food actually helps them to recover.
That's not what it is in the way that doctors are trained, but it's amazing how many doctors or GPs you can go and see, and they don't actually ask you about your, oh, what are you eating? What's your diet? What's your nutrition like? Because unless they're trained in a holistic way, they're literally just providing something for the alleviation of symptoms rather than looking at a holistic solution.
For sure. And to be fair, I will give them some credit. They are starting to talk about food. So, I mean, there has been a lot of work done with lifestyle factors. So it is encouraging to see that. But my sense is that it's really like, look, we're running out of resorts now because we have to look at food. But it's quite lovely. It is quite lovely to be able to introduce a farmer to a consumer, and where they tell a story about a direct effect of how their food has helped heal them.
Right.
Like, we would see that.
Powerful.
And it is powerful. It is powerful. There's no two ways about it. But I adore those moments where you can capture the farmer and the recipient in the one space, and you get the opportunity for them to tell their story.
Well, it would be churlish of me not to mention at this stage one of the gents in the Menscape group, Richard Rocker, and one of our sponsors for a while of the Menscape podcast, his functional naturopathic clinic. Having a chat with Richard gave me a great insight into my own personal health, and he put me on this thing called a paleo reset, where I went back to cutting out anything in a packet or a box, cutting out dairy, and just literally meat, veg, and I couldn't even eat bread, no wheat, no dairy. And this I literally, the weight just dropped off me. I was delighted with myself. I kept running up to the mirror and having a look. Oh yeah, look, this is great. And yeah, I realized the huge impact that food and nutrition has on personal health, but also that there seems to be like a suppression of information, or also like it's the whole sort of, whether we're designed or born to eat meat or not, it seems like you can find information that'll go on forever on either side of the fence. And so people don't really know. But if everyone, I suppose, has a different body type or a constitution type. So in the Ayurveda, there's the concept of the Prakruti, and this idea that you have a certain constitution type for which there are certain foods that work for you that won't work for someone else, and vice versa. I never heard of anything like that before. Nobody taught me that in school, or I never picked up a book on that. So why is that information not made available to us when we're growing up? Well, maybe it's not commercially viable to have an intelligent, critical thinking population.
Maybe not, Carl, maybe not.
Don't set me on the conspiracy stuff, but at the same time, it's a huge education to be able to. I got excited about Pat Barry's, organic beef sausages and what have you. I
think when
since I was a kid.
Yeah, when you have, I think when you go on the journey, first of all, you think, oh gosh, it's not great. I've discovered this. I need to tell everyone else about it.
Mm.
But in reality, as you wise up to the whole system, and you realize, yeah, it is deliberate repression of the value of this resource that we have. Like the big food companies control the majority of the food supply. And we know that it causes a lot of harm, both individually to us as the individual body, but also to, like the environment. If you're talking about fizzy drinks, we're not only just talking about the impact of, say, fizzy drinks on our liver and our kidneys and metabolism, but also like, cans and bottles everywhere littering. But these companies have such control of the food system that anything that will disrupt that does not need to be championed. And if anything, it needs to be actively suppressed. And we do see that. We saw that with raw milk.
Right.
We saw that with there was a plan to ban the sale of raw milk, at the early 2010s. And, there's an active suppression of meat now. And like what I hope to do with the urban co-op, again, we need to protect those farmers. We need to protect these foods. We have them on our doorstep. And my fear is that if we don't protect them, the alternative is horrendous, which is the ultra-processed foods.
Talking to most people, we'd sooner have farmers than politicians. Farmers perform a function in society that's important. Politicians simply don't, no matter how much money they spend on trying to convince us that they do.
I do, but I know that a lot of people are taking an active interest in the way the country is being run, or the way the world is going, and the role that each country plays in their role in the world. But I think on a very basic level, that in order to be able to be good at critically thinking, you need to feed yourself well. And
absolutely. Yeah.
So it's a cycle that we need to protect, very much so.
I remember reading about the calcification of the pineal glands through certain sort of food products, and then reading that the pineal gland was meant to be the seat of the soul, or the connection between your spiritual body, your astral body, your physical body, and your soul, and all this stuff. And I was thinking, well, is that just me that's being a bit of a weirdo that I'd be reading this kind of stuff? Or is there something in it? And I thought, well, I've nothing to lose by actually, drinking alkaline water, or cutting out certain foods, choosing alcohol-free mouthwash, choosing fluoride-free toothpaste. If I'm wrong, so be it. If I'm not, then hey, my mental health and emotional health and spiritual well-being won't have been harmed.
Yeah, you can, again, when you go on the journey, you just see how pervasive everything is. I find I go into supermarkets and I just find them so toxic. And at the same time, I do have to go into them. I can't, in my life here, say sometimes I will bring Shane into the supermarket. He's 19, to go shopping with me. He won't always have the urban co-op to be the place. He has to manage life in the world. But I spend time looking at the products, going, all this stuff everywhere.
I can't talk. I have quite a bit of a sweet tooth, but I will pick up anything I see and look at the ingredients. And if there's literally a paragraph of ingredients, I don't belong in putting it back down again, because there doesn't need to be all that stuff in there. And the biggest one at the moment for me, after years of teaching my kids to look out for aspartame or acesulfame on the drinks, is rapeseed oil. It's in virtually everything. I was looking for some pesto, rapeseed oil. I was looking for, like a wrap, literally something to have for my lunch, rapeseed oil. It's like, well, what's that doing in all of this stuff? And it's like, I'd be putting things back as much as picking them up these days.
It's hard. It's hard. It's like, don't eat this, don't eat that, put that down. It's quite exhausting, actually. And one of the things, I suppose, with the urban co-op that we try to do, and again, you'll know yourself, the 80-20 rule. If you try to be good, where you say, well, at least I'll try 80% good, and I'll try to
reward myself then with something I shouldn't have. Yeah.
But in a way, we kind of do that at the urban co-op, where 80% is pretty good stuff, and then the 20% as the carefully selected, ultra processed, would have ingredients that we would approve of. There wouldn't be 5 million ingredients in it. So, we do believe in surrounding yourself with good choices that makes it easier for you.
Could you make my sandwich?
I will. I'm getting the call even to make a sandwich now, because I'm talking about food. Do you want to come over here and say hello, Shane? He's gone very quiet now. Do you want to come on and come onto the TV? You never know, he might make an appearance.
Well, that gives us a nice little natural break from talking about the urban co-op and sort of talking more about you and your own story and your own journey. So I've got some questions for you. Have you ever jumped out of a plane?
No, and I don't intend to.
Yeah.
Have you ever ridden a
Shane
horse?
wants to.
Shane's there. He's here now, is he?
Do you want to come over?
No.
No. No. Here, look.
He's here.
No.
No, he's getting shy now. So
That's okay.
have I ever ridden a horse? Yes, I have.
Ever driven a Ferrari?
No. I had
Have
to
you-
think about that. I
Have
don't
you
know why
ever-
I had to think about that. No, I haven't.
Have you ever walked on hot coals?
No, I haven't.
Have you ever been abducted by aliens?
Not that I know of.
Have you ever done public speaking?
Yes, I have.
And have you any favorite books or books which you would recommend to us, and why? Any books that have changed your life?
I read a huge amount. And I suppose one of the books that really would have changed my life would have been The Gut and Psychology Syndrome with Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. I guess if I hadn't read that book, I wouldn't be where sitting talking to you right now at the Urban Co-op.
About gut biology, is it?
Well, it's about gut health and the gut and psychology syndrome. It's really she put together a dietary protocol and rationale for the gut flora and how it all works and how we can heal ourselves with good food again. And she brought me back to good food again and introduced me to the Weston Price Foundation, which was a nutritional foundation based on the work of Weston A. Price. Again, a brilliant book, which is called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, written in the 30s and of a dentist who traveled around the world looking at the traditional cultures there and why their teeth were very good and what foods were they eating. So,
Sounds like a book I could get my hands on myself.
Yeah, it's a brilliant book.
Well, if humans are around for a very long time, and dentists presumably aren't, I often wondered, what did people do before dentists to look after their teeth? Are there any natural foods that you can eat that will help produce natural sort of chemicals, whether it's in your saliva or otherwise, that improve the health of your gums, keep your teeth sort of clean and healthy?
Yeah, I suppose Weston Price's research would have shown that, you know, a nutrient dense diet meant that your teeth were much stronger, and they're effectively like your teeth are your outside bones or your visible bones, and it's a reflection of the health of your body. So if we're eating a diet which is, as he would have called it, the foods of Western commerce, you know, they're not nutritionally dense at all, and your teeth, your bones get depleted of nutrients, and your teeth get dental decay and etc. etc. So the need for dentists, and like even if you look at orthodontics now, every second person, we've gone from the braces to the veneers. You know, everyone has like complete false faces now. You know, you have the false eyelashes, the false eyebrows, the false teeth. You know.
Well, I'm just grateful that I've still got some left in my mouth, because not only did I always have a sweet tooth as a kid, when I first came to Ireland about 25 years ago, I had a dentist on O'Connell Street in Limerick, and he used to sing at me. I'd come in and he'd be like, "Hello, Carl, how are you, boy? How are you doing?" And I'd lie back, and 10 minutes later, he'd have cracked tooth, pulled it out, and I was on my way. And it took me a while to start questioning, why am I letting this guy do this to me? What's wrong with keeping the teeth or trying to save them? It was always seemed to be something that was dictated by budget, and it was like the filling was double the cost of having the tooth pulled. So it made sense for me, but also made sense for him because it was only 5 minutes work. And kind of had to take a rethink. And again, that was part of what I wrote about in the first and third books that I published, where I had to almost unlearn this lack of self-love and start to put into place a self-love routine that wasn't out of vanity and sort of narcissism, but more about actual genuine self-worth, genuine self-esteem, genuine self-care, and starting to make choices and decisions, not just for the short-term benefit, but for the future me that was going to inherit the consequences of those choices. And obviously, looking at what I ate, looking at my habits, looking at what I was doing, all fell under that remit. So I basically had to take a good, long, hard look at myself in those times. It's no good just doing meditation and mindfulness and doing a practice like that if you're then going and eating crap and getting your teeth pulled out every 5 minutes. So, do you know, everything is in this sense about alignment.
I think, again, when you're talking about the ability to critically think and put those pieces together, there is such a habit now with the population of covering up the symptoms, that to make you socially acceptable, that you never get the chance to look deep and say, well, why are my teeth all over the place? Why do I have such bad decay? Why are my nails in such bad state? It's a case of, I just need to go and get my nails done, get them covered over and looking as beautiful as possible. I just find it interesting. You've seen over the last 10, 20 years, I've just seen this explosion in how people present themselves. They're hiding the true self more and more and more, because it's become totally socially acceptable to do this falseness. And
so with the boobs and the lips and
I hadn't even thought of the boobs. Yeah, the boobs, the lips, you know, what area of the body is
I guess
everything up for grabs, really.
a lot of that is driven by media. And again, as part of my own journey of unlearning lack of self-love and starting to take a look in the mirror and start to respect and appreciate and love myself, was this idea that a regular meditation practice allowed me to sit with my body, to feel my feelings, to sit with what was coming up. And the pretty obvious thing that came through was that we've been lied to from cradle to grave. We've been bombarded from our childhoods with magazines, billboards, television ads, all of which seem to be founded on the notion that you are not enough just as you are. You need this makeup to beautify yourself if you're a woman, or you need this car to be a man of stature and status if you're a guy. And all of these marketing sort of principles are founded on the belief that you need to buy something to enhance your life in some way to feel good about yourself. And all right, there are some things out there that do that, right? But it wouldn't be as successful for them if we all were taught to love one another, love ourselves for who we are, and use the mantra, you are enough just as you are, and go with the bare minimum of what we need. We actually need very little in life.
We do need very
the
little.
hard way.
Yeah. We do. And that's something I've learned too in this journey is, you know, how much is enough? You know, people will usually give the argument, oh, organic food, that it's expensive. And in reality, the people who are
Are you not worth it?
Yeah, well, apart from the not being worth it argument, is the actually you don't need as much. So it's quality versus quantity. But either way, it is a consumerist society. We have been taught to shop to death. And
right. And that's obviously there's somebody who benefits from that, and they're controlling then the media interests that then work in harmony with that, as well as public education and other organizations. And it's almost like the journey towards self-care and well-being and wellness is almost like a journey that you have to take in the face of the culture or in the face of the society. And then you start talking to other people, and they might be listening to what you're saying. All right, so there is a guy that does that. All right, so there is a woman that sells that. And that news travels like wildfire because people are interested. Yeah.
Yeah, but also I think a strategy that has been employed a lot is the, you know, isolating individuals where you feel like you're alone. And I do, what I like about the urban co-op too as an environment is it does bring people together where people feel like, well, I don't feel so crazy, you know, to want to be around this.
On the contrary, I get a good vibe whenever I call in, and it's like I'm almost finding a reason to sort of hang around there and stuff to buy, just to feel part of that. As a child growing up in the northwest of England, our local town was called Ashton-under-Lyne, and it was a market town. And at 6, half 6, 7 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, there'd be people setting up their market stalls. And this was the hub of the community, real people working hard, working class people. And there was a real vibe of community spirit in that. And I think you've got something where you've tapped into that there that you don't really get that often anymore.
And I do think food as well is that filter through which, you know, like real good food is a filter too, that, you know, when you can connect the producer to the consumer and you bridge that link, that love is there, you know, and it isn't about quantity, it is about quality.
Yeah.
And I do love those. I just love those light bulb moments about people when when they do get, actually, this is what it's all about. This is, you know, we actually are trying to nourish ourselves. What I particularly like too, that I suppose when you create an environment where, and the right people come, etc. What I've noticed actually with food too, and the way the food systems have gone, you'll see a lot more foods being food products. Let's say, for example, the sauerkraut. Again, good for your gut health. Or there's a product called Spoonful Botanical, which is one that jumps to mind. It's an Irish product where they've taken, actually, I think they've taken Ayurvedic principles on this, and they've fermented some fruits and with spices, and they've created a fermented food, but they've used their knowledge to enhance that, and their travels to create a food to bring to the Irish market. And I love that, that critical thinking that's trying to help people and enhance their lives and bringing it in a food. I think that type of positive development through food, and using the system for good. So I'm seeing more and more of that. And when you get people coming together, it does spark their imagination to think of something good to add to the situation. So, again, if we're nourished, what our brain is capable of doing, and maybe our pineal gland is unblocked, and away we go.
And your pituitary gland, yeah.
Maybe, like, I certainly think so different than I used to years ago, and we often talk about it here, going, oh gosh, we would have loved going off to a McDonald's or a can of Coke.
Until you start asking questions like, where did this come from and what's in it? And
well, I didn't. I didn't
sorry you're asked.
But I didn't ask questions, and it's taken many years to learn more. And I do feel, in a way, look, we live in this environment, and I have teenage children who, that's what they're surrounded by. And how is it a case that unless you're preaching to them, they have to learn to navigate these foods, this environment themselves. Now, my daughter has just come back from a school trip in Rome there for a few days, and she was chatting about it, and she was saying how the food wasn't great in the hotel, blah blah blah. Anyway, I made dinner this evening, so I haven't heard this for a long time, but she said dinner was lovely, thank you very much.
Travel broadens the mind and makes you grateful for mum's home cooking.
Yeah, well, look, it has taken that, but the food is...
This is a really important point, actually. I was we were visiting friends in Wicklow at the weekend, and we went out for a really nice meal in an Italian restaurant in Blessington. And the food was quality, the service was quality, the company was quality, everything was perfect, right? But I still don't know what they were using in what I was eating. I still, I'm sure they would have told me if I was asking them, but I just trusted that they were using the right kind of foods, because the atmosphere and the vibe in there, people loved to be there. The staff had a real connection with the customers. Everything about the place spoke to me of authenticity, and I kind of had to trust. But if you go, say, out for dinner, and I've only had this on a few rare occasions, just through having guests or visitors or visiting people, where, say, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, go out for a meal, come Monday night, and just eating our own homemade food at home is like heaven, because you know what's going in it. You don't know what people are cooking with. And quite often, just to cook from scratch, and have natural ingredients and fresh fruit and vegetables and clean water. I mean, we're a lot better off than a lot of people in this world if we have these basic things. And so yeah, it's, I suppose, gratitude for that as well.
Yes, and we can't lose sight of it. But as you say, that inherent trust that we have in in ourselves and in what we have around us. Now, again, interesting chatting to our daughter about her experience, and she was complaining about, say, some of the school team were vegetarian, and the dish that they were brought out wasn't vegetarian, and they knew it wasn't. And I said, well, did you find you didn't trust the staff then? And she said, we didn't trust them. And I was explaining to her, it's very important to build trust. If you're working in that environment, you said have to establish trust with that customer, that what you're providing, that customer is going to get what they're looking for. And I said, in today's world with social media, etc., they can't afford to get it wrong, really, because people do negative reviews very easily. But our innate ability to know and trust when something is right or something isn't right, it's fairly spot on most of the time. And
well, your intuition
you're in tune to
and
it.
your
Yeah, you
intuitive
are.
development, that comes back again to your pineal gland and your pituitary gland. And when we look at how things have gone in the last 3 or 4 years, and they're saying, come and roll up your sleeve, and we'll pop this mystery unknown bunch of chemicals into you to help you. And you're saying, well, when was the last time I did actually trust the government or trust big pharma? And I have some questions for. No, don't ask any questions. Just go ahead and take this.
Trust the science.
Trust the science. Trust my whole. It's like, come on, seriously. But it is very easy to say that now after the event for some people. But I was mocked and bullied and abused for being kind of no mask, no test, no jab from day one, and had to tolerate huge levels of isolation, separation, being mocked and bullied and what have you. But again, if that's what it takes to just stick to your principles and have priority of your own well-being and mental health, then so be it.
No, it was interesting for us because, I mean, obviously at the co-op, we were dealing with a lot of people coming through the doors. And in a way, we had to pick a middle ground. I know I had my own personal views on it, but I felt like we had to respect the fear of the customers coming in, and again, understanding. It has been a really interesting few years, but I think it has made people aware of how far things can go. And it was a great experiment. But the book I'm reading at the moment is The Ordinary Men.
Oh, yeah, I was asking you about your favorite books. Sorry, we digressed.
Well, I won't even say it's a favorite book. It's my current book. It's The Ordinary.
What's it called again?
Ordinary Men by is it Kevin Browning?
Right.
He's looking at the records of a Regiment 101 who in the Second World War in Germany were just basically rounding up the Jewish people out of the ghettos and shooting them, and how what brought them to that mindset to find that it was okay to do. And so
behavioral psychology had some part to do with it.
Oh, yeah, but it was fascinating. It's a fascinatingly gruesome book.
Right.
But it's one of those books that sometimes I have to read something that's lighthearted, but sometimes I force myself into the darkness and go, we're all capable of this. And, some people, I put myself into the situation where I'm going, actually, if you were in your local village and a troop of soldiers came in and just started rounding up people, like, what would you do? Would you stand outside your house and go, no, you can't do this? Or would you go, I'm not getting involved?
I think self-preservation kicks in first, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would. And, but I'm finding I find it fascinating to read that in the context of what we've just been through with the, in a way it seems mild in terms of the coercion towards the.
Isn't this exactly what happened with the legacy of the black and tans, though, reading about
Oh,
Dan
yeah.
Breen and what have you?
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. But at the end of the day, I do have a certain gratitude that we've been living through levels of peace and prosperity for, say, 20, 30 years, that, the generations that we're living through ourselves. And
if we have a roof over our heads, food on the table, clothes on our back, clean water, and love in our hearts, we're doing
we're
pretty
doing pretty well. We're doing pretty well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I feel like it's a case of I have this constant meerkat in me that I'm constantly looking over my shoulder going, right, where's the next threat coming from? I do see we have a threat towards our food systems, absolutely. And that's, I suppose, why I do what I do.
Our poor friends in America have very much been seeing an attack on their food production systems.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it will have catastrophic effects. There's no question. And how bad will it get? I don't know. But from the books I'm reading, etc., I say, well, you can see how bad it can get. And we can't be naive.
One of our friends that we met on the trip to Egypt in November and the Nile cruise and stuff, she is a sort of vegan chef in the States, and she was saying to be able to just find decent, nutritious food where she is a hell of a challenge. It's very difficult for them to do that. And that, there are certain influences that are making it hard for people to find affordable, decent, nutritious food there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, we're right in the middle of the Israeli Gaza situation, and like it's one thing to bomb and kill people, but it's quite another to starve as well. And like, food is used so much as a weapon, and but what I think is really important, that we have to look at the recognizing what food is all around us at the same time, and how to create food for ourselves, and how to tend food, and hold on to those skills, and cherish people who know how to do it.
This knowledge is suppressed, isn't it?
Yeah, but cherish the people, and like that, learn as much as we can about the natural habitats, and like the natural mushrooms, and the natural, the foraging foods, etc. It's fascinating, and in a way I find, gosh, I wish I'd learned this earlier. Yes, it really
all
should
coming
be.
to you just at the right time.
It's coming to me now, but it's one of those things that is it something that comes to you when you're older? Is it something you can teach children? Like the teenage kids now, or the kids nowadays, like, are they that interested? They're very disconnected from where food is coming from.
Yeah.
But anyway, we have to start where we have to start. And, generally I find that they take an interest when their back is against the wall.
Yes. And any degree of sort of spiritual evolution seems to be accompanied by a great deal of personal suffering, almost to the point, especially with art. So if you're writing, or you're a painter, or you're a sculptor, there always seems to be suffering connected with art, and the ability to express the depths of one's soul,
Maybe that's the key.
I have a couple more questions for you, right?
Sure.
What was your best trip abroad, and why?
My best trip abroad. I think one of my favorite holidays. I did live in Botswana for 3 years, and I'm taking a trip up to the Okavango Delta. It was quite special. Camping.
What are you doing in Botswana?
Teaching home economics.
Wow, I'd say that was some experience.
That was fantastic. It was fantastic. Sure, I hadn't a clue going out, and but it was great. It was great. It really, I think it crowned me.
Yeah.
It made me change.
What age were you?
Went out at 25.
So that's you're still quite fertile at that particular age. I don't mean biologically, by the way. I mean
Yeah,
with
no, but
ideas, and you'd be affected by that,
I was affected by it. Yeah, I do remember before I went out thinking, and now I went out in 1992, so before the internet kind of started to take hold, etc.
Yeah.
So I do remember worrying how I would be able to follow on the Coronation Street storyline.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you imagine growing up in Manchester and having to watch it religiously like 20 million other people did every Monday and every Wednesday, and then they announced they were going to put it on a Friday and then on a Sunday omnibus as well.
I know. Well, look, I was like, it was Deirdre Barlow was going into prison at the time I was living. And that gives you the extent of my what was interesting to me at that time.
Just on that, right? My stepdad said he met Jack Tarmy, who was a fella that played a character called Jack Duckworth.
That's right.
And we said, was he any different from what he was like on the show? And he said there was only one thing that was different about him from the fella on Coronation Street. On the TV program, he had a little piece of sellotape on his glasses. Apart from that, he was just the same. Exactly the same guy, rolled up shirt sleeves and spoke the same and did the same things. Yeah.
Well, no, look,
Jack and Vera.
Jack and Vera. No, it was important to me at the time, and there I was fretting about how I would miss out on the storyline. How would I find out what happened?
Did they even have a television in where you went in Botswana?
No.
So you had to occupy yourself in other ways.
We hardly had no. To be fair, like there was a diesel generator. I think was it 1994? Was there a World Cup rugby football or something that
94, 92 there was a World Cup. 96 there was a World Cup.
92. Well, anyway, I'm not a football fan, but I do remember that the staff getting, I think TVs did come to the school, and we didn't get one at home where we were staying. We did have electricity, not always, like it was powered down for various hours of the day. We didn't always have water, but it was fine. It was a bit of a culture shock when I first went out there, but as I got used to it, it was great. As I slowed down and whatever.
Sunsets and sunrises in Africa.
Oh, superb! Yeah, they were fantastic. So wonderful holidays, and so just being able to go to these safari parks and everything as a resident, they were so cheap compared to what you would have got if you were coming from abroad. So yeah, they were quite special, I have to say.
Okay, and Glitch in the Matrix story. Is there anything that's happened to you that's had you question this life, this world, this reality that we're presented with? We had a gent on called Mark Atwood. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's fairly well known in the sort of truther industry. He said his whole life had been like a glitch in the matrix story, but usually people have just one or two sort of incidents. I know I had a couple myself. Has there anything happened to you that had you take a look at things and go, that's a bit weird?
I suppose if you looked inside my brain, you'd probably say, well, that's a bit weird. And I do have plenty of random thoughts about various things that I go, where did that come from? But to be fair, no, I think my view at this moment is, look, this is our slice of history, and we just have got the parts to play at this time. And we're very insignificant, and yet we're very significant.
Yeah.
You know?
It's kind of paradox there.
Yeah, it's a paradox because there's so many of us, and you just look at the world the way it is. And the power of the individual is quite phenomenal. I think one of the glitches in the matrix is actually when you get a view into the portal of, we have the capacity to do so much. And when you get a glimpse of that power, it's very, very frightening. And you kind of backpedal out of it and go, oh, can't go there. But, you know, I kind of try, again, whether it's just the age I am at this stage is just, well, look, I don't know how long I have left or how long is our time here. And
Right.
this is as much as we can do in our time here. And it is those combinations of relationships along the way and that spark that you have with other people. And great things happen. Great things happen. And you have to kind of let it happen. But you have to initiate it by coming together as a community. You know, you can't really do it on your own.
Collaborations and random acts of kindness and goodwill and community strength, but also championing the virtues of the individual and your own sort of journey. Yeah.
But I think it's your own capacity as an individual is amplified in a community setting. You know, it's very hard to do stuff on your own. And I suppose that's what draws me to the cooperative idea.
Yeah.
Is
and
that
if there's a bunch of people all looking to manifest something together, there's a power there in that.
And I do find as well, I suppose, this thing about the gut flora. I have this fascination with that we just imitate the bacteria. Like the whole concept of quorum sensing, where you get a critical mass of bacteria that come together and then they exert an effect. And I said, we're the very same. We are the very same. So we're just a larger version of these bacteria. They're doing the work. They're just
Is that the 100 Monkeys idea?
In what way, Carl?
They said if they took a certain behavior into a species, certain type of monkey, and they taught this particular skill to a small number of them, there was almost like a self-learning, unspoken, unwritten, non-physical in that species, that once 100 had learned this particular behavior, all the others could do it automatically. I forget the study, the details of it. It just known as the 100 Monkeys kind of.
Okay, like stuff like that fascinates me.
There's a lot of unexplained, like we really know nothing, don't we? You know?
No, we don't. We really don't. We really don't.
In the scheme of things.
I think staying alive and staying well is a major achievement.
Survival itself.
Survival itself. Yeah, just staying well and being able to function.
So on that note, we're going to head into a 1-minute quickfire round and then we're done.
Are they not one? They feel like quickfire rounds all
A 1-minute quickfire round. Thank you so much, Anne Maher, for being a guest on the Menscape podcast. An hour or so has just flown by there, and we'll wrap it up here with a quick England or Germany?
Germany.
Sunset or sunrise?
Sunrise.
Blonde or brunette?
Brunette.
Manchester or Liverpool?
Manchester.
Kerry or Dublin?
Kerry.
Brown or pink?
Brown.
Spots or stripes?
Stripes.
Gardening or gym?
Oh, gardening.
Boccherini or Echo and the Bunnymen?
I don't know what either of those are.
Sun or moon?
Moon.
Emerald or ruby?
Emerald.
Silver or gold?
Silver.
Beer or wine?
Gold.
Meat or cheese?
Oh,
Onions or carrots?
onions.
Salt or pepper?
Salt.
Hurling or rugby?
Neither.
Pizza or Chinese?
Pizza.
And finally, forest or beach?
Forest.
There you go. Hopefully that wasn't too challenging for you.
And you stick that into a computer now and go,
No, it's just a
personality
random
type.
bunch of things. One of the ones I ask is Aldi or Lidl, but I left it out given consideration that we might put Urban Co-op in there instead.
No, that's very kind. Well, Aldi or Little, yeah, that's interesting.
So,
But for what it's worth, I'd say Little. For what it's worth.
thank you so much for your time. And
Not at all. Not
yeah,
at all. And thank you. Thank you.
all the best, Dan. Take care and God bless.